All right, welcome back to the Property Beat, where we are about to talk, we hope, with special guest Anthony Lawley. This is a very interesting story, and Jonathan dug this guy up through one of our services, and I am really excited because I think he's got a really interesting story. He's the founder and CEO of a company called Rapid Realty, which has they have offices across the New York City metropolitan area, and they specialize in apartment leasing. Now, they were only founded in 1990s, and they opened their first franchise office in 1998, and they opened their first franchise in 2009, and holy smokes, have they grown. They're now over 50 offices, and they are setting their sights on other marketplaces across the U.S. So there you have it. Jonathan, do you want to say anything else about Anthony?
Well, Anthony seems to be quite the character. He's got a website you can go to, anthonylolly.com. That's LOLLI.com. And I love it. I don't know who his PR people, who this firm is, but they've done a great job in putting a little bio together on him and helping you walk through who is Anthony Lawley and giving a lot of background. But, he started out in the real estate business and started investing, and now he's running a good-sized franchise system, much to the chagrin of his competitors. They're wondering, where'd this guy come from, right?
Yeah, that's it. And Anthony, are you on with us? Anthony, are you on with us? Anthony,
Hello?
Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if you hear me.
Okay. We found Anthony. He was lost in the switchboard. We've got a bunch of callers in today listening in live, and it's like, oh, where'd you go? Okay, well, Anthony, welcome aboard. It's a little hectic today, but we're going for it.
Excellent.
So now, as our listeners know, we always like to kind of throw our guests right under the bus immediately and ask something about you, ask you to tell us something about you that's interesting or unusual or something you've done or someone you met, just anything you're proud of or anything you want to tell us that doesn't necessarily have to be real estate related, but gives us a little bit of insight into who you are. What do you got?
Well, there's tons of it. Right now, what I could tell you was I was motivated a couple times in my youth to become a successful entrepreneur. From some impactful moments. There was one moment when I was 6 years old that I realized that we didn't have any money as a family. So and it was an interesting story. We talk about it often, but it's a story where I used to watch my mother go into Saks Fifth Avenue and go shopping and try on clothes and perfume, but never walk out and purchase anything. And one of those occasions, I actually looked at a waterproof watch that I really wanted her to buy, and I started nagging her to buy it for me, and she said no, and time again I kept bugging her, and then one day she just looked at me with tears in her eyes, and she said, you know what, we can't afford it. It was like a $12 watch, too, and she said, we just can't afford it. And that just impacted me right there. It's kind of like the movie The Sixth Sense in the end when he realizes that he's dead. Same thing. It's just everything started to make sense, So I made some promises. I made some promises to Mom. I said, one day we're going to be so rich, I'm going to buy you a white limousine with a chauffeur and a white mansion, and you can buy whatever you want and travel and eat in all sorts of restaurants. And then, of course, later on I made good on that promise. But it wasn't just that moment either, because I was raised with a father who was a retired school teacher, living off of pension and Social Security, and to make ends meet, he kind of was a street entertainer, and he had a beautiful blue and gold macaw, and he used to go around the restaurants in Little Italy and some of the nightclubs and put the bird on couples' shoulders and take a Polaroid picture with them, and he's a hustler. He did what he had to do to put food on the table for the family, and I learned a lot from that experience. But what I also learned was that I needed to get my act together, because as a teenager, I would frequent a lot of the restaurants and hang out in Little Italy and go out on dates, and I noticed a change in society. When I was by his side when I was 8, 9 years old, the crowd and the type of people and the character of the people that were out in the streets were a little more friendly, a little more polite. Fast forward 10 years later, people are pulling the bird's tail. People are, pointing and laughing at him because sometimes the bird would do number 2 on his back. And he used to always joke around. He says, "You're here to watch my back." So, of course, when I wasn't by his side, it would get a little messy. So those things impacted me, and I said, I have to do something. I can't have, my parents who were much older and elderly suffer the consequences of having a son that if I was able-bodied and capable, why can't I just make their life? I was very grateful for all the love that they gave me. So, that's something a little bit different, And, of course, I started in real estate when I was 19. So
wow.
I started real early. I took a real estate class, and I took a liking to it immediately. But I always would question instructors, because I remember in the classroom the instructor was raving about how you can be successful and you can become a developer and you can get into construction and become a broker and who knows. And I raised my hand. I said, "Well, excuse me, sir." I said, "If this is the case, then why aren't you doing it?" And, and I was always controversial. And he says, "You know what? I'm going to talk to you after class." I said, "Okay, no problem. I'll be waiting." So after class came, and then he pulled me to the side. He said, "Anthony, I actually own this real estate school." And I did some quick math. There were 75 people in the class, and I paid $175 tuition. He had, at the time, the class was only 1 week, and there was classes day and night, and 52 weeks out of the year. So he was making about $1.3 million a year in real estate education. So after that, I said, "No problem, Sensei. I'm going to listen to you." And when I was in the classroom, that's when I started building my goals. I said, the first thing I'm going to do is pass this class and work for a top real estate company in Brooklyn, which I did. And then I said, the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to learn all the ins and outs of real estate. I'm going to soak in as much knowledge as possible. I'm going to rub elbows with movers and shakers. And the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to learn how to buy real estate. Just from asking, most people in life, they have 1 or 2 mentors. I say I had 300 because there wasn't a landlord or a listing or a commercial a business owner that I didn't ask questions as if I was a 6-year-old kid again. And I would find out who their lawyers were, what kind of financing, who were the mortgage people, what kind of banks, how'd you do this, how'd you do that, how'd you leverage, all these things over and over and over again. And when I took those 300 resources, put them all in a pot, and then whenever I came through tough times, I was able to fall back on some of those mentors.
Absolutely. It sounds like it gives us a little bit of a flavor of your background and who you are. It also kind of tells us how you got interested in real estate. And from the time you got interested there with all these mentors and you're seeing people out there be successful, you ended up buying some multifamily units and kind of having your ups and downs with that. So tell us a little bit about that. You started buying, some multifamily rentals?
Absolutely. Well, what happened was, it's a roller coaster ride. There were some highs and lows. So I worked for a top real estate firm in Brooklyn. I had a falling out with the broker because he wanted me to do some shady business, and wasn't in my character. So I left him to go work at another firm. I thought I was a hot shot because I was a great salesperson. So I go right on the Strip, right on Montague Street in Brooklyn. It's very popular. It's Brooklyn Heights. It's like the Beverly Hills of Brooklyn. So here I am with all my accolades of selling properties all over Brooklyn, and I go to the Strip, and then they say, "You know what, kid? You're just too young. We don't care if you sold a 2-family home in Timbuktu, Brooklyn. This is Brooklyn Heights. This is for an older, more mature person, more established person." I said, "But look, I'm self-taught. I know how to sell. I know how to rent. I know how to do everything on my own." And they all turned me down. And then when I was going to quit, I picked my head up. I looked up at a second floor. I see an empty office. I charge in there, and the office had like 20 desks. It had an old man in the back. And I go up to him and I say, "Excuse me, sir, I'd like for you to sponsor me." He says, "Up, kid, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm not interested. I'm in the middle of a couple lawsuits here. I don't want to train any kids. I'm not interested." I said, "No, I'm self-taught. I can bring business to this neighborhood." See, one thing that was interesting was that I grew up in Brooklyn Heights. before it became Brooklyn Heights. And my dad was known as the Birdman because he used to go around when he wasn't in Little Italy and the restaurants working. He would walk around the streets with the bird, and I was always, you know, his son, the chubby little kid next to him, walking around the neighborhood. So I was already branded, and I utilized that when I went into Brooklyn Heights, and I took an offer that was a very tough offer from the old man. He says, I'm not going to teach you, I'm not going to do anything, but here's what you're going to do. You're going to, if you want to work here, it's 50-50. And I said, sure, you know, that's the way it is in real estate. It's a 50-50 split. He said, no, 50-50. You pay half of my rent, half of the expenses, half of the bills.
Wow.
I like that. I've got to try that plan.
Exactly. So, but you know, it's funny. I took the deal. And I didn't regret it because I remember there was 6 months that I didn't pay for a lunch or a dinner because all the other brokers on the strip that turned me down were now courting me to steal me away from him because I was getting listings left and right, multi-million-dollar brownstones, because I was able to say, you know, I was the Birdman's son, you know, the guy that walked around in the neighborhood in the promenade with the bird, that's me.
That's amazing. Well, you know, that shows you it's that sphere of influence, that people that know you are your best sources of clients.
Absolutely. Now, that begs the question to me, what I want to know, I'm dying to know, did you ever flip the bird to that broker in the future?
I did. You know, I'm glad you mentioned that. I had to. You know, he ended up losing his lawsuits, and you know, it was an office where it was just him and I, and then I turned it into a 20-man powerhouse. I recruited and I built the team, and one by one he stopped paying everyone their commissions, and everyone started dying off. And I figured he would never, you know, kill the goose that lays the golden egg, but he did. He owed me almost over $30,000 in commissions, and I basically left him. And then when I left him, I was already established, and I was going to find a commercial space on the strip. I didn't want to work for any other broker. My mom said, you know, and why are you going to work for another broker and take some of these aggressive offers? Because by that time, everyone on the strip was offering me higher splits, you know, 80-20. They were going to give me a stipend for a secretary, some money for a company car, a whole bunch of stuff. And she said, well, you know, if you're that hot, why don't you just open up your own practice? I said, you know what, that makes sense. So I was going to rent the commercial space, and at the time, the commercial spaces were like $4,000 to $6,000 a month in that area. But I could swing it. I was doing fantastically well. And my mom said, $4,000 to $6,000. Why don't you just buy a property and pay a mortgage with that kind of money? So
there you go.
And so at 21, I bought my first property. It was a mixed-use property, residential and commercial. And it's interesting how I ended up coming across that property, because when you're in real estate, it's kind of like you're a paparazzi. Whenever you see a sign being hung up, you stop the car, you get out, and you come to do your listing presentation. So,
okay, wait, I got to stop you. Tony, let me stop you there for just a minute. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Sure. No problem.
I'd like to buy the world a home and furnish it with love. Grow apple trees and honeybees and snow white turtle doves. I'd like to teach the world to sing with me. Perfect harmony. Perfect harmony. I'd like to buy the world a coat and keep it company. That's the real thing. I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. And I'd like to buy the world a coat and keep it company. It's the real thing.
All right, welcome back here at the Property Beat. We are talking with Anthony Lawley, Rapid Realty's CEO in New York City, one of the fastest growing companies in the marketplace, and he's just an exciting guy and got lots of good stories, definitely, for sure. So, Anthony, I was reading an article that was written about you guys on The Real Deal, and it says that your average office is like only 500 square feet or something. It's a very small office, but tell us how your overall program works, if you will, your firm.
The concept is a boutique-style concept. Our storefronts are 200 to 500 square feet, but it's a boutique. It's kind of like a hardware store with Home Depot's inventory.
Oh,
That's
okay.
really what it boils down to.
Okay, so do you have, like, are there live agents? Are there, like, it sounded to me like it was a cafe style where people would come in and they had like stools, they could sit up at a counter and go to a computer, and am I incorrect in that?
No, you are correct. Well, what it is that unlike any other franchise, a Subway franchisee doesn't have his employee take off the apron and work out of the other Subways downtown. But in our system, we call it co-opetition. We cooperate with each other and compete with each other in a friendly way. So an agent can really work out of any territory, and it works for the benefit of the customer.
Okay. There's also something that really struck me was a little bit about your model, and I don't know if you're still sticking with that or if it's current or not. Are you? It looks to me like a customer, a potential tenant, if you will, for a property, let's say, could work with multiple agents during the process of their transaction. Is that how does that work in your firm?
Yes. I mean, a customer can work with any agent at any time.
Right.
They can stick with the agent that they like, and that agent has access to all the inventory in any borough. Or they can, drop that agent and work with another agent if they feel. So it works to our benefit because this way the customer kind of dictates the search.
Okay, because the article gives the impression that they have one agent that will be showing them the property, another agent that will be writing their agreement. I mean, is that...
Oh, you mean the assembly line process? Yes. That's what makes our system completely different. It's an assembly line process. So a showing agent,
tell us
all
about
they
that.
do is show. Yeah, showing agent, all he does is show apartments. This way he becomes an expert. He becomes an expert in neighborhoods. He becomes an expert in apartment sizes, and he just knows the inventory like the back of his hand. And then we have a closing agent. Once the customer's interested, the showing agent hands the baton to the closing agent, and of course the closing agent is an expert at putting together paperwork and getting customers approved and dealing with students or maybe someone with shaky credit or a different circumstance. So, and they already have a rapport and a relationship with thousands of landlords, so they know how to work a deal. And then, of course, they serve as a processor/closer.
How did you arrive at that model concept? What was your inspiration on the thing? I mean, where'd you get the idea for that? That's great.
Everyone wants to duplicate themselves, and I was having a tough time getting somebody to duplicate 100% of the process and not get frustrated or not lack in one department. So I decided to just split it up. I said, I'm going to send people out just to become listing agents. They're just going to meet landlords, shake hands, kiss babies, and build the inventory. I'm going to just train someone how to close really well. And it's kind of the Ford assembly line process. And I think that's the success of most franchises today.
And then, so how does the consumer react? I mean, one of the objections that I read in there was they said, one of your competitors said, a real estate agent's like a doctor. You need to stick with the same doctor. And I'm thinking, well, that's an interesting view. I didn't go to medical school, but okay.
I read that and I thought, excuse me, Cliff, I read that and I thought, wait a minute, aren't there specialists in medicine too? I mean, when I go to the doctor, aren't you attended to by a anesthesiologist and there's somebody, there's always
absolutely. And if you sit there, if you're in an emergency room, you're not going to see that same guy for, he's on his shift, he sees you, and then he leaves, and then someone else comes in. I mean, come on. So how is the consumer taking this, working with the multiple agent model?
The consumers love it because one deal closes, and it's kind of like the Verizon commercial. You have a whole network of people rooting for you, pushing for you to make your deal go through, to provide inventory for you, to show you inventory, to close your deal. They love it. Who doesn't like variety and who doesn't like a team effort? And it raises competitors' eyebrows because we have in this business there's natural attrition. Not everybody's cut out for a commission base. But in my company, a person has a winning shot to be successful and hone their skills. Maybe they don't like to go out and meet people and interact. Maybe they're more behind the scenes in an administrative capacity. We have a position for that. Maybe they don't want to go out and meet customers. They'd rather rub elbows with landlords and get listings. We have a position for that. Maybe they want to be a franchise owner. You know, you don't have to be Michael Jordan to own a sports team. And it's the same thing here. You don't have to be a top salesperson to own a franchise. If you understand the concept and you have good leadership and management skills, you can be in a position where, you know, you can have octopus arms. You know, you have 20 agents out there doing work for you. So.
Yeah, that's great. We got a question from a listener, Deborah from Columbus. She's writing in saying, I'm inspired by your entrepreneurial drive. I'm looking to open my third office in a bedroom community of the city there in Columbus, and I always struggle with finding good management talent. Any advice for Deborah, Anthony?
Absolutely. The advice I give to Deborah is that how are you training your management? You know, I've seen people time and time again train somebody for a week to do a job that they've been learning themselves for many, many years. You're going to have to dedicate the time and the money to kind of like do the job in front of them. And I know it's painful because you're paying somebody to watch you, but you have to make that commitment before you can kind of let go and put the responsibilities of the business on them. And remember, no one's going to be as passionate as you. You're the owner. You put the money in. You put the blood, sweat, and tears. So you can't be disappointed if they don't react the same. And then also, if there's no opportunity for growth, you're going to be training either your competition or you're going to be training somebody that's going to leave you and work for somebody else.
All too true. Folks, we'd like to remind our listeners that if you have a question you'd like to ask our guest, Anthony Lawley, you can simply call us at 347-989-0439. We'll be right back after this quick message.
Jell.
Extra good news. The makers of Jell-O have discovered a way to give you rich, luscious chocolate pudding far more easily and far more economically than ever before. With the new Jell-O chocolate pudding powder, you can make old-fashioned pudding, smooth, creamy, and chocolatey, just like the ones Grandmother used to make back in the good old days. Now you can have them again, and this is all you have to do. Just combine the contents of a package of Jell-O chocolate pudding with some milk in the top of your double boiler, letting it cook until it becomes smooth and thick. When the mixture has cooled, serve it in sherbet glasses. You'll have enough for 6 helpings, and that means 6 happy people. Jell-O chocolate pudding is so simple, so inexpensive, and so downright delicious that you mustn't delay trying it. Ask your grocer for Jell-O chocolate pudding, and if he hasn't put it in stock yet, be sure he orders it for you. Remember the name, Jell-O chocolate pudding.
All right, welcome back. We are here at the Property Beat. We're talking real estate with Anthony Lawley of Rapid Realty from New York City. If you have a question or comment, you can call us and join us in the conversation at 347-989-0439.
So, Anthony, you opened up your company in 1998, but then about 11 years later, you opened up your first franchise office. So what was the biggest challenge that you had launching that first franchise office or launching the franchise as a whole?
Well, the biggest challenge was met because I opened up a test pilot store. I didn't want to. I knew I could become a successful real estate broker. I had all my years of experience under me, but can I have a total stranger do it? So I opened up a test pilot store, and I put a manager in there, and 6 months into it, the manager said, I want to be your first franchisee. So the biggest challenge was everyone else jumping on board because, you know, your concept, although you've proven it yourself, it still has to be proven with someone without as much experience. So when that person opened up the first location, it just snowballed. From there, 29 months later, we have 55 offices. That's when everyone else started jumping on board because they said, okay, it's not so bad. I know Anthony can do it, but I can do it just like her. And then, you know, it just grew. It just grew into multi-unit franchisees and people. Now I have master franchisees, so it's great. I love it.
Oh, well, what hiccups did you experience? I know you had to perfect the model somewhat from the first, time that you opened. So what are some of the adjustments that you've made along the line?
Well, my system is like a cooperative system, so I had to adjust. When I ran my office, I only had one location, so I had to kind of adjust to offices doing business with each other. Now we were now interacting, and there's a lot of moving parts. So I had to kind of adjust to that. I had to adjust to managing leaders. I knew how to manage salespeople and top salespeople, but when you're managing a business owner, it's a whole different recipe when you're talking to somebody who plopped down money and believed in you, and they're kind of like an entrepreneur by spirit and in heart, and it's managing the personalities that come across the table. And then, of course, there's marketing and all sorts of things. When you're growing really quickly, you're always going to face all sorts of challenges. So
absolutely. Now, so I'm a potential franchisee, or I'm someone out there considering, what's the value proposition? What's in it for me as a potential franchisee as far as Rapid Realty is concerned?
Oh, lots. You inherit the entire database. You basically get a business in a box. You're able to inherit the assembly line process, and you have, at this point, we have 800 people. So you have 800 eyeballs helping you rent your stuff. It's a royalty upon royalty-based system. So in our company, if you own a franchise, you can have agents go out and rent, and they can rent in any territory. They can close a deal in any office, and you get a commission on any of the activity they do, as well as listing agents. You can breed listing agents out of your office, and they go out and they list. And in New York especially, landlords own properties in all different boroughs. So your office may be in Queens, but next thing you know, one of your listing agents landed a landlord or a management company that owns properties throughout the entire tri-state. So you basically get residual income off of any of the activity that happens from that. Plus, you get a powerful brand that's going places. I mean, at this point now, we're in Boston, we're in Philadelphia. We have deals under development in San Diego, in Los Angeles. So it's an amazing growth opportunity for you, because you can also become a master franchisee and present this opportunity to someone else and benefit. So you also become like a mini franchisor.
So, Anthony, we've got an email from a listener, Rick in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, who's asking, what's the typical cost for opening a Rapid Realty office?
It varies. It all depends on the state and the rent price, but we factor it. It's between $30,000 and $100,000, and that's everything soup to nuts. That's your rent, your security, your startup costs for incorporation or LLCs, legal fees. So between $30,000 and $100,000.
And then what do you, so Rick, I hope that answers your question. So Anthony, what do you typically look for in terms of experience or tools or systems, or, what does it require to both acquire a franchise from you and then to retain it? I mean, what sort of objectives do you look for them to accomplish?
Well, the first thing is I've turned down franchise opportunities before. I won't do a franchise with someone that I can't sit down and have a meal with or kick back and have a meal with. There's a certain type of chemistry. We're kind of indirect partners, and there's a lot of interaction. And it's in franchising, it's like a family business, and you're interacting with all the other franchisees. So I'm sort of like the gatekeeper, and I'm inviting and welcoming someone into the club. And I want to make sure that I'm doing the right screening. So it's just all about their goals, where they want to be in life. I'm not really interested in someone that's not ambitious and someone that doesn't see themselves growing and enterprising, because, you have people that own 20, 30, even 100 Dunkin' Donuts. I'm looking for that type of franchising, the guy that wants to grow the brand.
Okay. Now, are you actively involved in consulting with these? So if, I think Jonathan said, well, okay, so we're a franchisee. Now, how often will we get to talk to Anthony, or are we talking to some rep that you have? How often do you interact with your people?
The interaction is immediate. I mean, I even host trainings in my home. I have a movie theater in my house. We have trainings in the theater, one-on-ones, text messaging, phone calls. I mean, I'm very hands-on. I even give the franchise tour myself. If it's someone who's really interested, I personally will meet with them and drive around and show them a couple offices and introduce them to franchise owners. That's how proud I am of my system. I tell them, go speak to the franchisees themselves. They'll tell you how much they love it. A lot of them are on their way to the second or third store already.
Great. Well, folks, we are talking with Anthony Lawley of Rapid Realty, and we'll get right back to him right after this quick message.
Hello, boys and girls. It's me, the Frito Bandito. You know what I heard about you? I heard you want to be a Frito Bandito like me. You do? Then you must sing the Bandito song. Let's sing together. You just follow the bouncing Fritos corn chips bag. Ay, 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 ay. I am the Frito Bandito. Hey, I like Fritos corn chips. I love them, I do. I want Fritos corn chips. I'll get them from you. Ay, 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 ay. Oh, I am the Frito Bandito. Give me Fritos corn chips and I'll be your friend. The Frito Bandito, you must not offend. Now, boys and girls, you are Frito Banditos too. You sing the Frito Bandito song, and you loco for crunchy Fritos corn chips. That's nice. Munch, munch, munchy bunchy Fritos corn chips. Munch, munchy bunchy Fritos corn chips.
Well, welcome back to the Property Beat. We'd like to remind our listeners that if you have a question that you'd like to ask our guest, Anthony Lawley, you can just simply call us at 347-989-0439. So, Anthony, tell us a little bit about what's going on in the New York City real estate market, in particular the rental market. Is it healthy? Is it recovering? Is it booming? What's going on?
It's booming. I mean, you can't pick up a newspaper in the real estate section without it talking about rentals. You can't get into a conversation with a mortgage broker or a bank that's not financing only rental properties. So it's booming right now because there's no more predatory lending. We got that entire influx of people that are still looking to move and position themselves. You also have a short sale market. There are people that are taking short sale opportunities now and taking cash for keys. Some of these programs that are out now that are looking to put themselves into a rental property. There are investors now that are buying short sales for the specific purpose of renting it out. I think I was listening in earlier, and you talked about some of that stuff happening over in Oakland.
Yep.
So it's happening across the nation. It's become a renter's nation. It looks like it's going to be that way for quite a while, and that's why now you have the heavyweights out there. You have private equity and people like that just specifically buying for the purpose of renting out, leasing out their property, both on the commercial and residential side.
That's true. That's absolutely true. So how long, or maybe rephrase that, how has Rapid Realty been able to buck the challenges of this market? You know, you've grown right in the middle of a bad market. So how have you been able to do that?
Well, we took advantage of a soft commercial market when the recession hit, and we expanded quickly. There was a lot of landlords that didn't know what happened, and a lot of their commercial spaces were empty. So we were fortunate enough to negotiate some fantastic rental deals. I mean, our most expensive storefront out of all 55 locations is $2,500 in Midtown Manhattan. Our concept is more retail storefront presence. Unlike most real estate concepts, they're like on the 33rd floor of a skyscraper hidden away. We're right there, front and center. We're in the communities. So we were able to get great deals. We were able to get fantastic concessions. Some of our stores, we got 3, 4, 5 months concessions. So all those things kind of helped give us a nice little cushion and position ourselves for the big rental rush that came in. So we made a lot of moves early on, and also we practiced an anonymity approach to our growth. We really didn't publicize it. It's only been 9 months that we've been unveiled. And you mentioned the article we were in The Real Deal. And if you notice, we've kind of remained low-key. I launched my AnthonyLolly.com website about 9 months ago. We've been on NBC and all sorts of press things since then. But that was our strategy. We knew that competitors were folding. We knew that some of them were closing locations and downsizing. We knew that no one was positioned to handle rentals. Everyone was still keeping their fingers crossed on sales. Their performance were based on sales. So we kind of just, the Trojan horse.
Yeah. No, that's a good strategy, actually. I've employed that when managing and rebuilding offices. Just stay quiet as long as possible until they figure out. By the time they figure out what you're doing, it's too late. You've already passed them.
Exactly.
So, Anthony, what's the next challenge? What do you see? Where are you going from here?
Well, what I did was I created an advisory council, right? I gave the company to the people who actually own Rapid Realties. At this point, there's franchisees that own more Rapid Realties than I ever had in my life. I only owned one. I have franchisees that own 4 and 5. So I have to respect what the ideas that they have, and it's similar. McDonald's didn't have a breakfast menu for 15 years. It was an advisory council that created the breakfast menu. From Wendy's, it was an advisory council that created the drive-thru window. So I'm taking their opinion and their advice and implementing all of these things into the company. And what I also did with these advisory council members, which are 12 of the most elite franchisees, is that I knighted them as master franchisees. And what a master franchisee is this person can go out and become an area developer. They can cultivate an area. They can bring franchisees into the system. They get a participation interest in our franchise fee. They get a participation interest in the royalty. So they become a mini franchisor. So the latest challenge is kind of grooming them from being a shopkeeper and franchisee to now kind of doing what I do now and working with sophisticated investors. We have some deals going on with some athletes. We have some deals going on with some private equity. So there's a lot of things like that. The deals are getting more sophisticated. They're 5-store deals in one shot, 10-store deals in one shot. So this is interesting. And also, we have a reality show in the works. We'll be announcing that soon, the network we're going to be with. So that's also interesting. That's going to put the brand on a national map.
Well, you just did announce it, and we're looking forward to it. Wow, you have your hands full. I was going to ask, are you guys doing strictly rentals, or do you do some sales as well? And is it residential only, or is it residential and commercial?
We do mostly residential and commercial. We do both, but we do mostly 1031 exchange type sales because we interact with a lot of developers and multi-unit landlords. We'll be in a lease signing with a guy who owns 10 buildings, and he'll say, hey, I'm looking to get rid of these 2. And then the next day we'll be in a lease signing with a guy who owns 20 buildings who says, hey, I'm looking to buy 2 buildings. So we do a lot of that, a lot of emails, pictures of the mechanics, send them a P&L, and then the stuff gets sold.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, folks, if Anthony, how can people get a hold of you? If you can, real quick, give us in 10 seconds, how do they reach you if they want to know more about your company and possibly get a franchise from you?
The first thing they should do is go to AnthonyLolli.com. That's Lolli like lollipop, Lolli, AnthonyLolli.com. And if they're looking to learn more about Rapid, they can find it there, or they can go to RapidNYC.com, RAPID NYC.com.
Great. We'd like to thank our listening audience for tuning in to today's episode, and we'd like to thank our special guest, Anthony Lolli. Thanks, Anthony. You were a great guest.
Thank you.
A lot of fun. And that's our show for the day. So, folks, get out there and have some fun in real estate. Well, that's a wrap for our show today, folks. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Property Beat. We'd like to remind you that if you have any questions you'd like answered on our next show, you can simply email us at questions@thepropertybeat.com. You can also follow our blog at thepropertybeat.com, where you'll get news, tips, and stories about today's real estate industry. For now, I'm your host, Cliff Parati, along with Jonathan Nicholas, saying so long. Thanks for tuning in.